Good evening and welcome everyone to Sinister Wisdom's Night of 1,000 Lesbian Feminist Queer Stars. We may call it Night of 1,000 Stars, but there are not quite 1,000, though you can see enough twinkles in your memory to reach that number. We are here this evening for a special event that we hope will become an annual fundraising event to support Sinister Wisdom. And I'm so happy you're here, and thank you for spending an hour with us this evening. My name is Julie Enzer, and I'm happy to welcome you to this event. Also, as is our custom, we spend a moment at the top of our events for a land acknowledgement. In the United States and around the world, many of us are living on occupied, unceded land. I am in what is now Dover, Florida, traditional homelands and territories of the Seminole. I invite everyone to insert into the chat your location and to acknowledge the land on which you live. As we think about colonialism in our own countries, I know many of us also think about the ongoing conflict and war in the Middle East. In this moment, we pause in solidarity as well with all who are mourning the loss of life, all who are awaiting the return of hostages, detainees, and political prisoners, and for an end to occupation. May we all raise our voices for peace and dedicate labor to achieve it. At this point, for those of you who usually attend our events, you know that I do a series of opening announcements. Part of that is to allow everyone to get in and get situated for the evening. I'm going to dispense with those announcements tonight, and we're going to dive more directly into our program because I want to make sure we have plenty of time for you to hear from our speakers and readers. When we were envisioning this event back in the spring and over the summer, we had imagined a fun and silly evening to celebrate lesbians, queers, and feminists and raise a little bit of money for Sinister Wisdom. As you all know, the world had different ideas for this time. I want to affirm that it's a difficult time in our world, both ongoing wars, and also the recent election in the United States. In spite of this, I am so happy that you all have chosen to gather with us this evening. We have a group of writers, thinkers, and public intellectuals who are going to speak to us and read to us things that we hope will provide balm and inspiration for our troubled times. And if you feel so moved from the event and you are not already a subscriber, please do subscribe to Sinister Wisdom, consider becoming a monthly sustainer, or donate to support our work. We do have a fabulous lineup of folks who are reading tonight, and I thank everyone in advance for reading to us this evening. I am sorry to note that Christos could not join us. But Christos sent a message that she is here in spirit with us and stands with us. And we've added Deborah Miranda to the program, who will join us in our reading. I'm going to start out the evening by reading a poem by Pat Parker that I think is appropriate for the time. It's called Boots Are Being Polished. Boots are being polished. Trumpeters clean their horns, chains and locks forged, the crusade has begun. Once again, flags of Christ are unfurled in the dawn, and cries of soul saviors sing apocalyptic on airwaves. Citizens, good citizens, all parade into voting booths and in self-righteous sanctity X away our right to life. I do not believe, as some, that the vote is an end. I fear even more it is just a beginning. So I must make assessment, look to you and ask, where will you be when they come? They will not come a mob rolling through the streets, but quickly and quietly move into our homes and remove the evil, the queerness, the faggotry, the perverseness from their midst. They will not come clothed in brown and swastikas or bearing chests heavy with gleaming crosses. The time and need for ruses are over. They will come in business suits to buy your homes and bring your bodies to fill your jobs. They will come in robes to rehabilitate and white coats to subjugate. And where will you be when they come? Where will we all be when they come? And they will come. They will come because we are defined as opposite, perverse, and we are perverse. Every time we watched a queer hassled in the streets and said nothing, it was an act of perversion. Every time we lied about the boyfriend or girlfriend at coffee break, it was an act of perversion. Every time we heard, I don't mind gays, but why must they be so blatant, and said nothing, it was an act of perversion. Every time we let a lesbian mother lose her child and did not fill the courtrooms, it was an act of perversion. Every time we let straights make out in bars while we couldn't touch because of laws, it was an act of perversion. Every time we put on the proper clothes to go to a family wedding and left our lovers at home, it was an act of perversion. Every time we heard, who I go to bed with is my personal choice, it's personal, not political, and said nothing, it was an act of perversion. Every time we let our straight relatives bury our dead and push our lovers away, it was an act of perversion. And they will come. They will come for the perverts, and it won't matter if you're homosexual, not a faggot, lesbian, not a dyke, gay, not queer. It won't matter if you own your own business, have a good job, or are on SSI. It won't matter if you're Black, Chicano, Native American, Asian, or white. It won't matter if you're from New York or Los Angeles, Galveston, or Sioux Falls. It won't matter if you're butch or femme, not into roles, monogamous, non-monogamous. It won't matter if you're Catholic, Baptist, atheist, Jewish, or MCC. They will come. They will come to the cities and to the land, to your front rooms and in your closets. They will come for the perverts. And where will you be when they come? Again, a poem by Pat Parker to start us off. I thank Pat Parker for her work in the community and for continuing her afterlife as a vibrant part of Sinister Wisdom. Now I'd like to invite our Sinister Wisdom board member, Yeva Johnson, to join us as the other host for this evening. Yeva.
Thank you so much, Julie. I'm really delighted and happy to be here with you all this evening. I think it's so important to be in community at this time. In addition to supporting Sinister Wisdom in the usual ways of subscribers, monthly sustainer pledges, with a special email from Julie, and donations, you can also bid on fabulous items from our auction, which is open until next Wednesday. We are dropping that link into the chat right now. And I can just say, on behalf of others like myself who are technologically challenged, it's worth it. Go on. It's fun. We have a lot of wonderful items. Check it out. Bid for things. Just have fun and play with it, because I've been doing that the last couple of days. Now I am very pleased to welcome our first lesbian star to read and share with us this evening. Please join me in welcoming the incredible novelist and editor, Katherine Forrest, coming in from California. Katherine, are you with us? We're going to pin Katherine and hear some wonderful work. Just unmuting.
I I'm sorry. Technology is not my thing, clearly. I am truly honored to be included on this particular evening for this very special event, and most especially to be among this group of pioneers and women who are absolute legends in our community. And I'm particularly happy to be here at this particular time. I've decided that what I would like to read is an excerpt from an introduction to this book, which I put together about 20 years ago for Cleus Press. I have to tell you, it's one of my very favorite covers. It's this generation of writers who provide perspective on where we are today and why we are not ever, ever going back. A lesbian pulp fiction paperback first appeared before my disbelieving eyes in Detroit, Michigan in 1957. I did not need to look at the title for clues. The cover leaped out at me from the drugstore rack. A young woman with sensuous intent on her face, seated on a bed, leaning over a prone woman, her hands on the other woman's shoulders. Overwhelming need led me to walk a gauntlet of fear up to the cash register. Fear so intense that I remember nothing more, only that I stumbled out of the store in possession of what I knew I must have, a book as necessary to me as air. The book was Odd Girl Out by Anne Bannon. I found it when I was 18 years old. It opened the door to my soul and told me who I was. It led me to other books who told me who some of us were and how some of us lived. Finding this book back then, what it meant to me, is my touchstone to our literature, its value, and its meaning. Yet no matter how many times I try to write or talk about that day in Detroit, I cannot convey the power of what it was like. You had to be there. I write my books out of the profound wish that no one will ever have to be there again. The importance of all our early novels cannot possibly be overstated. Whatever their negative images or messages reflective of their times, they told us we were not alone. And because they told us about each other, they led us to look for and find each other. They led us to the end of the isolation that had divided and conquered us. And once we found each other, once we began to question the judgments made of us, we created a community. And then we created our great, inclusive civil rights movement. The courage of the authors of these books cannot also be overstated. Anyone, yesterday or today, who has ever written a book can testify to the feeling of personal risk we experience, the sense of stark exposure. The writers of these books laid bare an intimate, hidden part of themselves, and they did it under siege, in the dark depths of a more than metaphorical wartime, because there was desperate urgency inside them to reach out, to put words on the page for women like themselves to read. Their words reached us, and they touched us in different and deeply personal ways, and they helped us all. In my case, and with specific reference to Anne Bannon, they saved my life. In 1957, I began my journey to community. Thank you, Anne. In 1976, Sinister Wisdom came into existence. I cannot even imagine how many lives this legendary publication has enhanced, changed, saved over the past 48 years. Under the inspiring leadership of Julie Enzer, it's as crucial a beacon to us today as it was in 1957. and it deserves its gratitude, our gratitude, and our support. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Sinister Wisdom. Thank you all for being here. Let's go onward into whatever awaits us. Thank you.
Oh, Katherine Forrest, thank you so much. That was fantastic. That was beautiful. I'm going to give a quick little heads up to Joan, but I'm going to now read two short poems that I had the honor of having published in Sinister Wisdom. And I wanted to share them with you all today, especially because of us meeting today. And also, I've been so delighted to find this lesbian, queer, feminist community that is inclusive. And it's just a beautiful thing. So these poems I selected were inspired by that thought today. The first one is one of the first poems I ever had published, and it is called Poetic Sisters. Her last poem slips away. My fingertips close the book of complete works, and I miss her. I yearn for her despite not yet having put her opus in its rightful place on my shelf. So when I turn to my other sister outsider, I cannot yet give myself up to Audrey because Pat Parker beckons me still with her innards. As I had to with June Jordan, I learn that I must live without her. All that's left are Pat's pages. After I recover my more even keeled black, lesbian, mother, pacifist, Jewish, feminist, physician self, then I can drink Audrey in. Drink deep but slow, like sampling a fine wine. Lord caught me up completely in the poem for Martha. I'm hooked, sinking and swimming, reading and rejoicing and mourning simultaneously. Oh, sister outsiders, would that I had seen you alive. And this second poem, I think there's at least one person. I'll read you the dedication. One of those people is with us. It is called, and I want to thank Roberta Arnold for inspiring me to write this poem, Fruits of the Sapphic Tree of Love. With love for Levi Peacock, Ellen Bass, Janet Brown, and Lindsay Wilde. Sappho has much to offer, so many delicious varieties of passionate affection among the community of women loving women in myriad ways. Queer love brings joy, delights, whether solo or in combination. So I slake my thirst for connection at the well of gratitude nestled at the base of the Sapphic Tree of Love. Okay, so now I am pleased to welcome all the way from Australia, Joan Nestle.
Oh, thank you. I am unmuted, right? Yes. Yes. Thank you so much, Ava. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Julie. I am far away, and the first poem I'm going to read has distance in it, but it's Sinister Wisdom and our collective communities that span the distances, the geographies that are so life-giving, and not only for us it will be, but it will be for every humane presence. The first poet, so I looked for who gives me hope, and first I went back. And the first poet I want to introduce is Muriel Rukeyser. She's fallen out of our pantheon in ways. She died in 1980. She was a poet, teacher, an activist in New York City mostly. And I'm going to read the poem that I found in other times of struggle. But what moves me so much about writing, and Sinister Wisdom as a presence of writing, is you can talk to the future. You can talk using the past. You can say, I have my eyes and heart on you. I went through this and I will help you too. And we saw that in Pat Parker's poem. So this is Muriel Rukeyser's poem. It's simply called Poem. I lived in the first century of world wars. Most mornings I would be more or less insane. The newspapers would arrive with their careless stories. The news would pour out of various devices, interrupted by attempts to sell products to the unseen. This is a 1963 poem. I would call my friends on other devices. They would be more or less mad for similar reasons. Slowly, I would get to pen and paper, make my poems for others unseen and unborn. In the day, I would be reminded of those men and women brave, setting up signals across vast distances, considering a nameless way of living of almost unimagined values. As the lights darkened, as the lights of the night brightened, we would try to imagine them, try to find each other, to construct peace, to make love, to reconcile waking and sleeping, ourselves with each other, ourselves with ourselves. We would try by any means to reach the limits of ourselves, to reach beyond ourselves, to let go the means, to wake. I lived in the first century of these wars. I want to read one short poem that's not so known. It's called Wherever. Wherever we walk, we will make. Wherever we protest, we will go on planting, make poems, seed grass, feed a child growing, build a house. Wherever, whatever we stand against, we will stand feeding and seeding. Wherever I walk, I will make. And that's in gratitude to all the artists who keep the human imagination as a place of hope. And I wanted, so that's my past. And I see Muriel Rukeyser as our lesbian voice with her eye on totalitarianism. It's in all her work. And now, so Julie is always saying, Joan, find the joy, find the joy. So I found joy this year in Black Joy Unbound anthology. Truly, the pages shone with love and humor and strength. That he got even lifted clouds in my head. And there was one poem in particular that was in the tense time, and we were having all these discussions about the humanity of trans people. And I think, how do we have those conversations over and over? And it's a poem by Ava Johnson called Welcome to the Gender Playground from the Echo Rue. The day I discovered a person could choose more than one pronoun, the world expanded in multiple directions, and my panda love found better bamboo forest to call home. The radical magnet, both drawn to and attracting the feminine in every person I met, that feminine, the nip to the cat within, romped untamed but always seen. The dolphin swimmer carried the queer lesbian who held hands with the they them of me on her broad brown back, and we all smiled free in the sun. Now, Dave, it's okay if I stop there? Because so my last, or my time here is now coming to an end, but I want to say, it's the voices that never gave in to the exiling of others because they were different from our own hard-won territories. That's what gives me hope, the acknowledgement of the complexity of our human ways. And I am so grateful to being part of this community. At 84, I cannot tell you how you keep me alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. That was delightful and a delicious surprise. So I will turn it over to Julie. Thank you, Joan.
Thank you, Joan. That was beautiful. I also see, and Sam, I know this is a little off script, but I wonder if you could highlight, I see both Palea and Darla here, who are two young people, younger writers and activists who did internships with Sinister Wisdom, and they're both based in what we call Melbourne. So I just want to pin them briefly. They've been having great conversations with Joan. And I want to say hello and introduce Palea to the community. I thought I saw Darla, but I know like technology connections. Palea and Darla are both working on a special issue called Bodies of Land. And it's been just a really gratifying, I had a great time working with them as interns. They've had a great time connecting not only with Joan, but also Yasmin Tambaya, who is also based in Australia. And so it's been a really beautiful internationalizing moment for us. So thank you, Palea. Thank you, Darla, now who's probably will watch this on record and know that we were lifting you all up and are excited about what futures you bring to Sinister Wisdom. And Joan, of course, thank you for all of your work on behalf of lesbians, queer, sexual outlaws, marginalized and oppressed people. You are a gift in our lives, and wherever you live, we want to be in community with you always. So we're taking a moment in our program right now to remember writers and activists who've been a part of the Sinister Wisdom community, but have now passed on. Not included in our video, but I want to say her name is Kathy Cade, who died late last week after what sounded like an ongoing illness. So Kathy was not included in this video, but we will include her in future years. So we have a short slideshow right now that we will share to remember our ancestors. You will also, I know as a community, have additional names of people that you are thinking about who have died. And I invite you to insert more names into the chat of people who have been important in your life, who've lifted up and amplified your work and been beacons and balms to you at difficult times. We will add those names in the future. Sam, would you go ahead and share the video now? Sam, go ahead and restart it because you didn't click the thing to share. Either you're not sharing sound, or you have your sound muted and therefore we cannot hear it.
They are falling all around me. They are falling all around me. They are falling all around me. The strongest leaves of my tree. Every paper brings the news, and every paper brings the news, and every paper brings the news, and the teachers of my sound are moving on. Death comes and lays so heavy. Your face I'll never see no more. But you're not really going to leave me. No, not really going to leave me. You're not really going to leave me. It is your path I walk. It is your song I sing. It is your load I take on. It is your air I breathe. It's the record you set that makes me go on. It's your strength that helps me stand. You're not really going to leave me. I will try to sing my song right. I will try to sing my song right. I will try to sing my song right. Be sure to let me hear from you.
That was beautiful. And that was wonderful. And I invite you all, after seeing that, to feel free to put additional names in the chat of people you'd like to honor and remember today. And thank you. I thank you for lifting up all these names and the names in the chat, and for being with us this evening to witness our ancestors and the legacy of creativity that we live within. Next, I am delighted to welcome Deborah Miranda to be our next reader, who is joining us from Oregon. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you. Seleki Itzu, Eheyuk, Nishma Punosim Tanok, Deborah. Hwe Elohuni Ehwe, Lakai Shemale Chumash. It is an honor to be here. This first poem was written very recently. It's called How to Elect a Fascist. Build your foundations on the bones of bodies buried alive. Let your buildings sway in the swamps of genocide. Weigh your wealth in lives stolen, bought, or hung like carcasses on a butcher's hook. Boast about your made-up history. Raise your children on a religion of entitlement. Starve them so they'll eat any offal you toss into their hungry souls. Teach them who and how to hate. Medicate their pain with promises you can't keep. In the absence of love, human beings will settle for the facsimile of a father, beg for his leather belt. To elect a fascist, you must start early. Educate citizens to resist revelation, literacy, truth. To elect a fascist takes a village or a country whose roots have fed on blood for so long, its people can only come out at night until you teach them to weave dark robes of injustice, block out the sun. Enjoy your rambling, incoherent reign of terror. The wheel turns. Beware those who love light. Beware light. It is the nature of light to break through. The second poem is called Hetza Acha, People of Light. For one night, we are stars who have found their constellation. For a few hours, we are mascara and glitter, sequins and lipstick. For a moment outside of time, we sway inside our home place, where the bass beat pounds our skins like taut hides, and we are who we were always supposed to be. Tonight, we are Will You and Yes, and Dance with Somebody Who Loves Me. We are a wave of dollar bills held up like candles. When we walk out that door, the full moon places a kiss upon our brows, like a tiara, and our hearts turn into luminaries, float up into a black velvet rhinestone realm. This last poem is for my wife, Margot Solid, and it's called Home. You are a hunter of auctions, of chickweed, skinner of bear and moose, multiplier of mosses, stitcher of quilts and tattered women's hearts, creek wader, walker of clay and smooth granite paths, digger of red ochre earth, guardian of the cedar grove, black walnut perfume maker, watcher of thorn promise berries, colt's foot shoots in the road, deer droppings in meadows, wild turkey at dawn. You gather red buds early ahead of the heat, place their tender petals on my tongue before breakfast. Ah, sweetheart, this pillaged continent's not what I've lost, not the sanctuary searched for since birth. All lusts ever harbored, each stolen deed of desire. These fantasies aren't native land. Where's home? I can't draw a map, but I've wandered each curve and hollow. The place that knows me is a woman. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Deborah, thank you so much for that incredible reading, addressing both this moment and we are stars tonight. I love that. And you have mentioned an auction, which reminds me to let someone drop into the chat for those who came a little bit later. We are having an auction, and the link will be in the chat. Thank you, Deborah. That was superb. I enjoyed that. Next, I am incredibly honored to welcome the next reader, and I would like to officially inform her, inspired by one of her volumes of poetry, I visited my barber in her honor just this past weekend. And that person coming up next is Cheryl Clarke. Welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you so much, Yiva, and thank you, Julie. I'll read two poems. The first is by Jane Cortez, only because I think it encapsulates perhaps our feelings in this moment. And it's called, Do You Think? Do you think this is a sad day, a sad night, full of tequila, full of El Dorado, full of banana solitudes, and my chorizo face a holiday for knives, and my arching lips a savanna for cuchifritos, and my spit curls a symbol for you to overcharge, overbill, oversell me these saints, these candles, these dented cars, loud pipes, no insurance, and no place to park because my name is Cortez? Do you think this is a sad night, a sad day? And on this elevator, between my rubber shoes, in the creme de mint of my youth, the silver tooth of my age, the gullah speech of my one trembling tit, full of tequila, full of El Dorado, full of banana solitudes. You tell me I use more lights, more gas, more telephones, more sequins, more feathers, more iridescent headstones. You think I accept this Pentecostal church in exchange for the lands you stole? And because my name is Cortez, do you think this is a revision of flesh studded with rivets? My wardrobe clean, the pick in my hair, the pomegranate in my hand, 14th Street, Delancey Street, 103rd Street, reservation where I lay my skull, the barrio of need, the police state in ashes, drums of tequila, full of El Dorado, full of banana solitude, say, do you really think time speaks English in the men's room?
I love that.
This next one by Audre Lorde, who said it was simple. There are so many roots to the tree of anger that sometimes the branches shatter before they bear. Sitting in Nedics, the women rally before they march, discussing the problematic girls they hire to make them free. An almost white counterman passes a waiting brother to serve them first. And the ladies neither notice nor reject the slighter pleasures of their slavery. But I, who am bound by my mirror as well as my bed, see causes in color as well as sex, and sit here wondering which me will survive all these liberations. Thank you.
Cheryl, I just want to say thank you for bringing the poets into the room and your beautiful, beautiful reading. And thank you for that. I could listen to you read all evening. I just want to make a quick mention also. These are Nights of 1,000 lesbian, queer, feminist stars. And we had a delicious night just 2 nights ago. And I just wanted to hold up as well. We had an in-person Sinister Wisdom event at Fabulosa Bookstore, queer bookstore in the Castro. Some of you might have known as was a different light back in the day. Judy Grahn was one of our featured poets, as well as Sinister Wisdom contributors Henry Ben Susan, Karen Poppy, Lily Kaler Honore, and Sarana Lore, and we had a fantastic time too. And you just, the joy and the energy you brought to that, Cheryl, just reminded me of that. So thank you very much.
And I'll add that on Thursday night, earlier last week, there was a gathering in Seattle at a new queer bookstore, Charlie's, that Jed Walsh and Marion Meeder organized for Sinister Wisdom. They had a fabulous evening as well. And I think this is an invitation to everyone as we think about this as an annual event, to think about organizing a local event in your community to spread Sinister Wisdom joy with folks in your community and introduce our work to other folks. So this is a part of our fall fundraising campaign. Every Sinister Wisdom is supported by subscribers, by donors. And recently we've gotten a small bit of grant money thanks to the great work of Marian Reeder, but we're really a lesbian organization supported by other lesbians, queer women, non-binary people, and people who see themselves as a part of our story and a part of our journey. If you're not a subscriber to Sinister Wisdom, please subscribe today. If you'd like to make gift subscriptions of Sinister Wisdom, you are welcome to do that. Everyone always asks me, like, if I buy a subscription online and I wanted to go to somebody, how do I do that? I can't make the technology work. It's all very simple. Everything that you do online comes to my inbox. So if you want a subscription to go to someone else, just send me an email with their name and address. I'll get it set up properly in the database and send a personal note to them, letting them know about the gift subscription. If you're able to make a donation to support our work, please donate. Jules will drop links for all of this into the chat. We're only able to do these things because of people like you who support Sinister Wisdom, give money and time to make different things happen. As Yeva's mentioned, we have an amazing auction that has been organized by our fundraising committee. We're putting that link in the chat. One of the best, I will say, you have missed out on one of the best t-shirts about matriarchy, but there are other great t-shirts, posters, books, and jewelry available at the auction. It is open until midnight Pacific time, so 3 a.m. for folks on the East Coast. If you're like me, certainly you are up in the middle of the night doom scrolling. Stop the doom scrolling, go to the Sinister Wisdom auction and see what we have to offer there. Open until midnight next Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. We invite you to bid early and bid often. I want to thank our auction committee and our fundraising committee, Jed Walsh, Marian Reeder, Roberta Arnold, Yeva Johnson, Allison Quinlan, and Jill Crawford for all of the work that they have done to make this auction and this event happen. I also thank you all for coming out this evening. We have 3 more things that we're going to do before we hit the top of the hour, but it amazes me, all of the women who show up for Sinister Wisdom in so many different ways, and that includes everyone who's here this evening. So to wrap us up tonight, as I said, we're going to do 3 things. First of all, Yeva is going to riff a little bit on her flute. We're going to have a beautiful flute interlude. Then I'm going to end by reading a little bit from Dorothy Allison's Skin. I will talk a little bit about that. And then for those of you who know Sinister Wisdom well, you know we end everything with a little dance number. So that's our agenda up until the top of the hour. Sam, will you go ahead and pin Yeva so that we can have our flute interlude?
Thank you, Julie. And this is for all the ancestors that we've called into this Zoom room today. Thank you.
Thank you, Yeva. That was beautiful. Many people, when Dorothy Allison died, talked about reading her collection Skin, a collection of essays that was published in the early it was published in 1994. In 1992, Dorothy Allison made one of the keynote speeches to Outright, and I'm going to read the end of that speech, which is 3 or 4 paragraphs, where she's talking about the work that she does, and it ends with a poem of hers. So this is Dorothy Allison from Skin. I tell people that I write. When I tell people that I write, I mean stories, and I do. Stories that tell the truth that I know, and only the part I know, because I don't know that much. I know about being queer in this decade, about the grief inherent in losing so many friends, so many memories, so many members of our precious remade families. I have no aunts left to tell me stories, and 3/4 of the young gay men that I worked with and learned to love when I first began to write are gone, along with far too many lesbians. AIDS and cancer have run through my community, not metaphors, but death in wholesale numbers. Sections of my life have disappeared with the ones we have lost. And I feel a great pressure to write the stories that would somehow preserve those times, those people, my friends. John Fox, Mary Helen Mautner, Alan Barnett, Jeff Maines, Vito Russo, Cynthia Slater, George Stambolian, and too many more to list in anything less than a massive memorial. Just my personal friends who have died, the list is too long. How can I not write mean stories? I don't have that child's easy hope for better times that fueled so much of my early stories. I have fallen in love with the hard side, with the women and men made tough by life and loss, who nonetheless have never lost their determined love for their own kind. If I am not mean enough to honor them, then I have no right to the stories. I need you to write mean stories. I need you to honor our dead, to help them survive. More than 10 years ago, I wrote a poem about a lesbian who died in Boston, a death I read about in the paper and knew immediately could have been my own. The death of a woman who might not have been known to be a lesbian, but who, as I read her poem in public, I learned more and more about, until I was certain that not only her death, but her life could have been my own. And that very likely she too would have wanted the mean story of her life told. I made a mean piece of hope out of telling about her, because I believed that if I died that death, someone would sing my song, recount my story. More and more of what I write now, I write in homage to those we have lost. To do more than survive, that is what we need, what I need from you. I need you to tell the truth, to tell the mean stories, to sing the song of hope. I need all of us to live forever and remake the world. Listen again to the words of my poem and remember the life it honors, the remade life denied to one of us. And this is the poem. Boston, Massachusetts, many years ago, a woman told me about a woman dead, a woman who might not have been known to be a lesbian. No one is sure they knew that. The cops didn't say that. They said she was wearing a leather jacket, blue jeans, worn boots, had dark cropped hair, and was new to the neighborhood, living in an old brick row house with 3 other women. Said she was carrying a can of gasoline. They did not say why. A car waiting, a jar of sticky brushes. Said she was white. Her friends were right. The neighborhood was bad. She and her friends were fools, didn't belong there, were queer anyway. Said the young, rough crowd of men laughed a lot when they stopped her, that she left back, and then they made her pour the gasoline over her head. Later, some cop said she was a hell of a tough bitch because she walked 2 blocks on her own feet, 2 blocks to the all-night grocery where another little crowd watched going, shit, will you look at that? Look at that. I read about it in the paper. 2 paragraphs, I've carried that story with me ever since, wanting more, wanting no one to have to be those two stark paragraphs. We become our deaths. Our names disappear and our lovers leave town, heartbroken, crazy. But we are the ones who die. We are the forgotten, burning in the streets, hands out, screaming, "This is not all I am. I had something else in mind to do." Not on that street, always and only that, when there was so much more she had to do. Sometimes, when I love my lover, I taste in my mouth ashes, gritty, grainy, grating between the teeth of a woman unquestionably known to be a lesbian. Thank you for joining us tonight. Now Sam will share our dance number.